Hi, this is Kenesha Lee for Bio 168 Cow Eye Dissection. To start the dissection, we can see here that the eye is covered with this thick white fibrous membrane, tissues and such that serves as a protective layer for when the eye is inside of the skull. With this particular eye, you can barely see because the eyelids are somewhat intact. The cornea and things, but as we start the dissection, I'll expose most of that. I'm gonna start with cutting away using my scalpel some of this tissue so that I can expose what I'm trying to get to. So the first incision I'm going to make is going to be directly straight down. And you can see some liquid start to come out of the eye, and that is going to be some of the aqueous humor that comes out. I'm going to use my scissors to continue this, that way I can try to maintain some of the structural integrity of what's inside. I'm just going to go around using the initial incision that I made. The goal is to try to cut this in a front and back, or a posterior and anterior portion, so that we can see those aspects of the eye. Fairly well. Almost there. Okay, you can see that outer that fibrous membrane is fairly tough, so it takes a little bit to get it cut and separated, but we have successfully done so. So we have the posterior here, and we have the anterior here. We will start with the posterior portion of the eye, and what you'll see here is on the outside, what was making it so hard to cut, this thick white portion here, that's almost a tad on the rigid side, that will be the sclera. Then coming into that, you'll see here this dark portion. While I was making my incision and trying to separate into a posterior and anterior, you can see it almost kind of already occurred, where the retina, which is this thin fibrous portion here, that's thin, that I'm moving around here with the forceps, that is your retina, or the retina of this eye. And the retina is attached to the choroid, which is this dark membrane here. And then the choroid, as you can see, everything was very easily removed from the choroid, except for that portion right here in the back. You can see I can use the forceps to move that up, except for that portion there. And that portion is attached to the optic disc, which is here, which leads to the posterior portion of the eye, that leads to the optic nerve, which goes into the brain. This portion of the eye will be considered the sensory tunic, and the sensory tunic is responsible for converting the light signals that you receive into the rods and cones in this portion of the eye, and so that we can interpret that into those photoreceptors in your rods and cones, so that we can see. So that will be the posterior portion of the eye. Then moving into the anterior portion of the eye, you can see here there's still quite a bit of aqueous humor here inside of this portion, as well as there's also some you'll see like a jelly-like, I don't get the camera here so it can focus. You can see like a jelly-like substance, and that jelly-like substance is called vitreous humor. And the vitreous humor acts as a barrier, as well as the aqueous humor in the eye, to maintain its shape, as well as to protect those membranes, as well as the rest of the anatomy within the eye. So this ball here, that is going to be the lens. We can remove that. Removing the ball. And I'm just going to use my paper towel and my forceps to kind of get the rest of this out. The liquid out. And so while I'm doing it, I'll go ahead and explain. So with the lens in, everything behind the lens would be considered the posterior chamber of the eye. Once I remove the lens from the area, everything that I'll be discussing will now be considered in the anterior portion of the eye. So here we'll see we'll see right here, this outermost ridge here, that will be the iris, and I can kind of pick that up if it's for you to see. That will be the iris. That round on the inside, not directly forward, but just the round on the inside, that would be the pupil, which dilates and constricts in response to exposure to light. And then drawing away a little bit more so that you can see. Perfect. All right, so now you can see even better. What I was talking about. Here you have the iris, this ridge here, and then here on the outside you have the pupil, and then here in the middle, this white, the lens, is the cornea, which if you flip the eye over and you were to open the eye, that will be what you would see here on the outside. And that concludes my dissection of the cow eye.